might take us a while, yeah. I left all the doors unlocked and you said you're on your way.
Hello my beautiful butterflies, it's your girl Yanabelle, and in today's video we're going to be doing a what I read in March video. I didn't read that many books this month, and I also read some like physical copies of books, and I also read some books on my iPad. So we're going to go through all of those books. Let's get right into it. The first book I read is called Her Soul to Take by Harley Lorax or something like that. It's about this girl named Ray who believes in like supernatural things like ghosts and all that stuff, and she has a channel that she posts about it, but she only posts real things, so her channel isn't doing that good. And then it's about this guy named Leon who's actually a demon, and he's trapped in this family, but then she summons him and blah blah blah, and you see their little love story. I really love this book. However, I will say like the first few pages, like the first 10 pages, I was like, what the fuck is this? What am I reading? Why did I buy this book? Why are people recommending it to me? But after I got past the first 10 pages that were like just explaining kind of like the demon world and their rules or whatever, I fell in love with this book. Like, this book had so much depth and actual plot. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some crazy smut in here. Check the trigger warnings. But then again, apart from that, like, the plot in this book is really good. And it has like some depth about religion. It makes you like really think things through. This was a 5-star read for me. I totally recommend this book. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's a 5-star read. Get this book. It's part of a trilogy. It's part of a Souls trilogy, but I don't like really reading books that like, I don't really like reading trilogies that are just different characters and that aren't like just the same characters. So I don't think I'm gonna pick it up, but maybe I will in the future. But yeah, that's the first book I read. First Mariana Zapata book, and I read Luna and the Lie. It's basically about this girl Luna who works at this auto shop, and she gets this boss. I forgot his name, but yeah, she gets this new boss. He's kind of mean, whatever, you know. It's grumpy sunshine, like, you know, mean to everybody but her, like, literally. Very slow burn. Very slow burn. It was a really good read. Like, I enjoyed the book. Even though it was a slow burn, it wasn't like, why am I reading this? This is so boring. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, it was super easy to read, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I can't put this down. Like, I need to keep reading it. I need to get to the next part of the book either. The only reason like I don't like this book like more than I think I would is because it doesn't have dual POV. It only has her perspective, and I feel like that takes away from the book. Like, if we got to hear his thoughts, I would have loved it a lot more. And also like the actual lie, not that big of a deal to me. I feel like the whole book was centered about this lie and about this like, oh, he's bad or he has this bad side, and it was just super like, huh, really, that's the lie? But then that might be because I'm used to like some really dark books. Like, I read really dark books like Hunting Adeline and stuff like that. So this was a 3.5-star read for me. Like, it was a really good book. I would recommend other people to read it, but it wasn't like for me, you know. But I do want to give another Mariana Zapata book a try because I heard she's like an amazing like writer, and I did like the book writing style wise. So I do want to read another book by her probably next month or something. After that, I finally got myself to read The Hating Game. This book was like TikTok viral or whatever, and I had bought it like when I first started to read, and I saw that it was blowing up. I started to read it like I think in January, put it down, read a whole bunch of books, picked it back up like the first week of March, put it back down and read those 2 books, and finally got myself to get through the book The Hating Game. If you don't know what The Hating Game is about, where are you? Like, are you on booktok even? It's basically about this girl, I forgot her name. Lucy Hutton. how did I forget that? It's about this girl named Lucy and this guy named Joshua Templeman, and they work in the same office, but they were part of like different offices, but then there was a merger and now they work together, and they have a whole bunch of different games. It's like enemies to lovers, but not really ever enemies. The first part of the book, I like, it was so boring. Like the first 35 pages, I was like, what is this? This is boring, because all you get is Lucy's description of like their workplace and their work dynamic, and I'm like, I don't care. But it was just to set up the book. But after that, I loved it. The banter, their relationship, like the whole book was like, it was a 4-star read. After that, I read this series, right? I read the first part. I read The Mafia and His Angel. It's basically about this girl named Ayla whose dad married her to like this very abusive guy who was his second in command, and she ends up running away, and she gets into Alessio's car without knowing, and that's her dad's biggest rival. He doesn't know who she is. She decides not to tell him because of something she finds out, and you see kind of them falling in love for each other, like, and this book was so freaking good. I literally want to read more books from Layla James, because honestly, her writing style is amazing. Like throughout the book, you get like little glimpse of other people's perspective that just ties into the book and makes certain scenes between them so much better. I literally am obsessed. This was a 5-star read for me. I love this book. The plot was there. Like when I tell you, it had smut, it had a plot, it had everything. The first book is a bit of a slow burn because, well, duh, but it's worth it. I'm telling you, you need to read it. When I tell you, like, after I started to read it and I got like 20-30 pages in, I went in and I ordered part 2 and part 3 like this. So this part 2. Part 2 is basically about, you have to read part 1 to get to part 2. Part 2 is just kind of them facing their own issues. It says the devil found her, so the war has begun. So it's him being at war and trying to look for her, and like just like these whole situations. So part 1 does end in a cliffhanger. This is my favorite book in the series. This is part 2. I cried in this book. Like this book, it was just so, oh wait, okay, I messed up. Part 1 doesn't end in a cliffhanger, right? So the first part of this book is them, you know, you get the cute little happiness, but then something happens at the end of part 2 and you're like, but y'all, I'm obsessed with it. Like, this was my favorite book. It made me cry, and I don't want to tell you guys that, like, for y'all to have expectations, but literally, like, I was in tears at the end of the book. I don't know why I was crying, but I had to step back for a second and just let myself feel the emotions. Like, it literally pulled on all of my heartstrings, like every single one of them. There was plot, there was smut, there was everything, there was point of views, and honestly, I'm super interested. Like, this is the first book series that I'm like interested in other characters, but when I went to go look at like the other books in the Tainted Heart series, it wasn't the characters that I wanted. Like, it wasn't like her best friend in the series. Like, where's her love story? Like, we need that. So I didn't like end up buying the other books, but I like the 3 books. This is a 10-star. Forget the 5-star. This is a 10-star read. And then right after that, I read The Mafia and His Angel part 3, which says the war continues, a battle for his angel. So this is the book that was like it's really deep. Search up trigger warnings. It's the heftiest book. Alessio in this book, you understand why he's worth everything. Like what he does for her, how he treats her, all of that. It is so great. I literally love this book. I'm obsessed with it. I am in love. This was a 5-star read, honestly. The way he just like went and got Ayla through her trauma is crazy. Like, she had so much trauma with what ended up happening to her, and the way he just was there for her was so great. it says in the back, and then my savior came. But it's just like the whole book, like the first part of this book is just her going through it, and you seeing her dealing with that and other people's perspective. And like literally this is the first book that I tabbed like the top pages, because I wanted to like those specific pages to stick out more than anyone. I'm super excited to reread these books sometime in the near future. I read I'll Call You Later on my iPad. This is the cover for that book. It's basically, he's a famous band artist and she's just her. They have like this on and off kind of relationship. It's best friends to lovers kind of, wow, friends to lover trope. They mess around with each other. He gets into this like situation with his personal life, and he calls her and tells her to come to where he's at, that he needs her. It was an easy read. Like, it was a really easy read. It was insta love, and the plot just felt super rushed. Like, one second this was happening, this next second that was happening, and you're like, how do they get to that point? Like, what the fuck is this? It didn't give what it was supposed to give. The smut though, it gave what it was supposed to give. Like, the smut gave what it was supposed to give, but the book plot, it did not give what it was supposed to give. I do want to keep in mind that I did read the Mafia and His Angel series right before I read this book. So, you know, they had high levels to try to reach or try to meet, and they was not meeting them. And, you know, so with that in mind, I probably judged the book a lot harder than I would have if I hadn't read the Mafia series right before it. But it was a 2-star read for me. The next book that I read was Twisted Love. It's basically about this girl named Ava and this guy named Alex. Alex is Ava's brother's best friend, so it's a brother's best friend trope. Yeah, basically her brother ends up moving away to go to like this abroad program or something like that, and he asks his best friend to move into his, well, to take care of his sister. And then the guy proposes that he moves into his house, and him and his sister used to live next door to each other. So now they live next door to each other. He's taking care of her, and you know how that develops. I love this book. It was so interesting. It kept me hooked throughout the book, except the ending. Like, the ending messed it up. I felt like the ending was so generically and just pushed together and so basic. Like, with the title Twisted Love, like, I know it was called Twisted Love, I get it, but I expected a better twist. Like, I wish they would have left something to like to gasp us, but they gave us everything, so it was like, well, that makes sense. But that's also because we get both points of view, so you know, like, what Ava doesn't know, Alex knows, so we get to find out because of Alex's points of view. But yeah, this was a 4.75 star. Like, it was amazing. I loved it. It definitely isn't just a plain 4-star, but it didn't reach a 5-star. 4.75, 4.50 if we're being very Heart of a Monster. She basically, it's about this girl, I forgot her name, who has a really harsh upbringing, right? Like, basically her father dies and she just gets into the system, and it's like messed up or whatever, and he doesn't have any parents. Her dad used to be a gardener for the mafia people. She gets into the mafia, he's in the guy's in the mafia, and that love story develops like that. The plot was like all over the place. Like, I'm like, huh, what is happening? I don't get it. Why is this book like this? I don't get why she wants him. I don't understand where they, like, it wasn't a good book to me. I didn't really love it, but I didn't hate it. It was just like a read that you like read and it makes no impact. You know what I'm saying? Like I read you and it was easy to read you, but you didn't do it for me. So it was a 2, like, I rated a 2.5 star when I had finished reading it, but now, like, thinking it through, it was really a 2-star. I really got myself to read Verity. If you don't know what Verity is about, again, where do you live? Under a rock. But anyways, it's about this girl named Lowen who gets hired by Jeremy, Verity's husband to finish Verity's book series because she gets into like this car accident, and she can't finish the books or whatever because she's kind of like just there, but she can't think for herself and everything like that. But Lowen ends up like having a little crush on Jeremy or whatever. And while she has to go to Jeremy and Verity's house to kind of like go through Verity's stuff and see like who she is, and she ends up finding this manuscript, and it's very disturbing. I was like reading that and I was like, what the am I reading? But it was so good. It took me forever to get into this book for the simple fact that I had read like other Colleen Hoover books and I was so in love with Colleen Hoover. She's probably like one of my favorite artists right now. I said artist, I meant writer. And I was super scared that Verity was gonna ruin that for me because honestly I'm not really into mystery. I only read romances, but I really wanted to expand. So I was a little bit like, I don't want to read this, but I finally sat myself down. I was like, you're gonna read it, you're gonna read it. And I read it and I fell in love with this book. It was so good, so interesting. It kept me hooked every second. It was between a 4 and a 5-star read for me. Like I loved it. Like it was really good, but I was like, I don't know. Like it's not my type of book, and it took me forever to get into. But once I got into it, I really did it for me. So I think, yeah, it was a 5-star read. Like honestly, like generally it was a 5-star read. But are you team letter or are you team manuscript? And I think honestly I'm team nobody. Like none of these characters deserved a happy ending. I said what I said. Part is the first semester is basically about this girl who gets on this dating app because like her new friend told her to, and she puts that she's 22, which is a lie. She's actually 19, and she meets up with this guy who ends up being her professor, and you kind of see that, you know, you get that vibe. It was a really good easy read. Like it was a good book. Like it was interesting. Like it kept me entertained, but there was barely like a real good substance plot. Like it just smut, a little bit of dialogue, smut. And it was also insta love, and I hate insta loves, but TikTok kept recommending insta love books to me. Why are you doing that to me? I don't like insta loves. It was a 2.5-star read. Like it wasn't a horrible book, but it just, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, you have to read first semester. And there's also other books in the series, but I'm not reading that. Then after that, I read The Little Devil, which is basically about these two kids who have rich parents. But the guy ends up doing like some fuck shit, but it's not really like he doesn't do anything bad, but his parents sent him to live with his aunt and enroll in this new school, and she's the misunderstood rich girl, most popular girl at his new school. He ends up going to one of her parties, they interact, you know, they end up having a thing, and it makes it seem like there's these deep feelings and these deep connection. It was a good easy read. I finished it in a few hours. The plot just wasn't the best. Like there was plot, it was there, but it wasn't the best. Like it could have used some development. It wasn't the strongest, and it was kind of insta love as well, and I just hate insta loves. Like I just said, it kind of bores me because in like the whole book is just them being lovey-dovey, or like it becomes like obvious to everybody reading the book that they're in love with each other, but they don't say it to each other, and it's just like, I don't want that. I don't want to read that. But yeah, it was a 3-star read. It was a good book. It was okay. It was there. The last book that I read in the month of March was Lessons in Sin. It's basically about this girl whose mom sends her to boarding school. Yeah, whose mom sent her to a boarding Catholic school because she does this thing that her mom thinks is bad, and you know they're a prestigious, very high known family, and so her mom sends her to this Catholic school, and the priest is hot, and she's ended up trying to use the priest to get kicked out of school by trying to seduce him, but then they start to actually have a relationship. and that's what the book is about. It was really good. It just was very basic. Like, it was very like, oh, I know this is where it's going, you know, like, it was just very basic, but it was a good book. Like, it was a good book. I actually enjoyed it. The plot was good, the smut was great, the ending was predictable, but then it's just a little short romance book. This was a 3.5-star read. Like, it was a really good book. It was a good book. It wasn't like 4 stars. No, it's 3.5 stars. It's not just 3 stars. It's a 3.5
Take
stars.
us a while, yeah. I left all the doors unlocked and you said you're on your way.